Lindsey Buckingham, the guitarist and vocalist best known as a longtime member of Fleetwood Mac, was attacked by a woman outside a professional appointment in Santa Monica, California, according to multiple law enforcement sources who spoke with NBC4 Investigates. The incident occurred when Buckingham arrived at a building for a scheduled appointment, and a woman, described by authorities as a stalking suspect, threw an unknown substance at him before fleeing the scene. Buckingham, who is 76 years old, was not physically injured in the attack, but the question on everyone's mind when details like these emerge is always the same. Was this truly random, or was there a more troubling history behind it? It was not random. Law enforcement sources confirmed that the woman is known to Buckingham from past incidents, meaning this attack did not come from a complete stranger. Authorities believe the suspect had obtained information about when and where Buckingham had his appointment scheduled and deliberately showed up at that specific location to confront him. That level of planning, tracking someone's schedule and appearing at a private appointment, is what places this incident firmly in the category of targeted stalking behavior rather than a chance encounter. Police say they have already identified the suspect, and while no arrest had been made as of early Wednesday morning, law enforcement indicated that an arrest was expected soon. Both the Santa Monica Police Department and the Los Angeles Police Department are actively working the case together. So who exactly is Lindsey Buckingham, and why does an attack on him carry the weight that it does for so many people of a certain generation? That answer goes back more than 5 decades to a musical journey that produced some of the most iconic rock recordings in American history. Buckingham was born in Palo Alto, California, and came of age during a period when rock and roll was reshaping the cultural landscape of the country. He joined Fleetwood Mac in 1975, and what followed was nothing short of a transformation, both for the band and for the broader landscape of popular music. The version of Fleetwood Mac that Buckingham joined was already an established act, but it was struggling. His arrival, along with that of his then-girlfriend Stevie Nicks, marked the beginning of a new chapter that would take the band to heights few acts in rock history have ever reached. The album that cemented their legacy came in 1977. Rumors was recorded under extraordinary personal strain. The relationships within the band were fracturing, emotions were raw, and the creative tension was almost impossible to contain. And yet what emerged from that chaos was one of the best-selling albums of all time, a record that spoke directly to the experience of love, loss, and the complicated spaces in between. Rumors won the Grammy Award for Album of the Year, and Buckingham shared in that recognition. For millions of listeners, particularly those who were young adults during the late 1970s and early 1980s, that album is not just music, it is a chapter of their own lives. But Buckingham's contributions to Fleetwood Mac extended well beyond rumors. His fingerprints as a songwriter, guitarist, and producer were all over the band's catalog. Go Your Own Way became one of the defining anthems of its era. Tusk, released in 1979, was an adventurous and unconventional double album that showed Buckingham was not content to simply repeat a formula, even a wildly successful one. Big Love, from the 1987 album Tango in the Night, showcased his remarkable finger-picking guitar technique and became another landmark in his long career. Throughout it all, Buckingham was recognized not just as a performer, but as a craftsman, someone who approached the studio with the seriousness of an artist who genuinely cared about every detail of the sound he was creating. Given all of that history, what led to Buckingham eventually leaving the band that had defined so much of his public life? The answer, as with most things involving Fleetwood Mac, is complicated, and it centers on the relationship between Buckingham and Stevie Nicks. Buckingham and Nicks had been romantically involved before they ever joined Fleetwood Mac together, and that history, both the closeness and the tension it created, ran through their entire time in the band like a current beneath the surface. By 2018, that tension had reached a point of no return. Buckingham was dismissed from the band in the spring of that year. The circumstances surrounding his departure were never fully and publicly detailed by all parties involved, but reports at the time indicated that Nicks had delivered an ultimatum: either Buckingham goes or she does. The band chose to continue without him, replacing him with 2 guitarists, Mike Campbell and Neil Finn, for their subsequent touring. Buckingham, for his part, contested the manner in which he was let go and later filed a lawsuit against the band, which was settled out of court. How did Buckingham respond professionally after being cut from the group he had been with for more than 4 decades? He did what he had always done. He kept making music on his own terms. Buckingham had actually been releasing solo material long before his exit from Fleetwood Mac. His first solo album came out in 1981, and over the years he built a body of solo work that, while never achieving the commercial peak of his time with the band, earned him considerable respect among musicians and serious listeners who appreciated his approach to songwriting and production. In 2017, he and fellow Fleetwood Mac bandmate Christine McVie released a collaborative duet album together, a project that was warmly received and demonstrated that Buckingham's creative energy remained very much intact, even decades into his career. Christine McVie, who had been one of the pillars of Fleetwood Mac for generations, passed away in 2022, leaving another chapter of that storied band's history closed. Returning to the events in Santa Monica, the substance that was thrown at Buckingham has not been publicly identified. Authorities have not released specific details about what it was or any potential harm it could have caused. The key point confirmed by law enforcement is that Buckingham did not suffer any physical injury as a result of the attack, but the nature of the incident, a suspect with a prior history of contact, someone who tracked his schedule and waited for him, raises the broader question that surrounds celebrity stalking cases in general. How does something like this escalate to the point of a physical confrontation? Stalking cases involving public figures follow patterns that law enforcement and mental health professionals have studied extensively. Often, the stalker develops what is sometimes described as a one-sided parasocial relationship with the target, a belief on some level that a genuine connection exists between them and the public figure they are fixating on. This can begin with letters, phone calls, or attempts to make contact through social media or intermediaries. When those attempts go unanswered or are rebuffed, some individuals escalate their behavior. The progression from indirect contact to showing up in person to ultimately confronting someone physically is a trajectory that law enforcement takes very seriously. In this case, the fact that authorities already know who the suspect is and have indicated an arrest is imminent suggests that there was enough of a documented prior history to identify her quickly. NBC4 Investigates reached out to a representative for Buckingham for comment on the incident, though no public statement from his team had been released as of the time of the initial report. It is not uncommon for public figures and their representatives to decline comment on active law enforcement matters, particularly when legal proceedings may follow. What this incident ultimately underscores, for those who have followed the music industry for any length of time, is that fame, no matter how long ago it peaked or how far an artist may have stepped back from the spotlight, does not insulate a person from very real personal danger. Buckingham has not been at the forefront of mainstream popular culture in quite some time. He is a musician with a legendary past who has continued working on his own terms, largely outside the glare of the kind of celebrity machinery that drives constant public attention. And yet that history, that name, that body of work, it is enough to make him a target for someone whose relationship with reality has broken down. For the generation of Americans who grew up with Fleetwood Mac on the radio, who danced to the Chain at weddings, or listened to Go Your Own Way through a car radio on a long highway drive, Lindsey Buckingham is not an abstraction. He is part of the soundtrack of their lives. Hearing that he was attacked outside an appointment in Los Angeles is the kind of news that carries a personal weight. The good news, and in this case there is good news, is that he walked away from the encounter without physical harm. Law enforcement is moving forward with identifying and charging the suspect, and the case is being handled by 2 separate police agencies working in coordination. As of now, Lindsey Buckingham is safe. The investigation is ongoing, and for those who have followed his career through its remarkable highs and its complicated turns, that is at least some measure of reassurance on a story that no one would have wanted to hear in the first place.